In the heart of Amoka village, where red earth stand the feet of farmers, and the air smell of roasted yam and fresh palm wine, lived a man of great honor, Onowu Ezenwa. He was not only one of the richest men in the land, but also the king's closest advisor. He has only one child, a daughter named Adaobi. From the day she was born, Adaobi was treated like a princess. Her mother died while giving birth to her, so her father poured all his love and care into her upbringing. Servants waited on her. Maids braided her long hair every morning. Everyone in the village spoke of her beauty. But there was one thing Adaobi lacked: a humble spirit. She looked down on other girls, mocked those who wore simple clothes, and always shouted at the maids like they were animals. Her father, though he noticed it, but was blinded by his love for her. She is still young, he would say. She will change with time. But time was moving fast, and so was destiny. As Adaobi turned 18, the winds of change began to blow across Amoka village. The beautiful queen of Amoka, Queen Adama, fell ill and died few months later. 2 years after the queen died, the villagers began to whisper among themselves, who would be the next queen? In Amoka, the queen was not just the wife to the king. She was a mother to the people, a leader among women, and a symbol of beauty, wisdom, and humility. Unlike many other villages, Amoka had a tradition where the next queen could be chosen from among the daughters of titled men. It was not just about birth, it was about character. One sunny afternoon, the elders gathered in the palace. The king, Obi Uchechukwu, sat on his royal throne, listening carefully as the elders mentioned the names of girls who could become queen. When Onowu Ezenwa's name came up, the hall became quiet. His daughter, Adaobi, is the most beautiful girl in the land, one elder said. True, another elder added. And she is intelligent too. She speaks very well, and she knows our customs. But is she humble? Asked the oldest elder. No one answered. Everyone have heard stories about Adaobi's rude behavior. How she insulted a village tailor for stitching her dress wrongly. How she shouted at a widow who came to beg for leftover food. And how she once slapped a servant girl for spilling palm oil on her slippers. But because of her father's position, the elders decided to give her a chance. The king agreed that all the girls chosen would be tested through different tasks. Only the one who showed wisdom, humility, and a good heart would be crowned queen. When Onowu heard the news, he rushed home in excitement and called his daughter. Adaobi, my jewel, prepare yourself. Destiny is calling you. You may soon be the queen of Amoka. Adaobi's eyes sparkled with pride. Queen? She laughed. Of course, who else could it be? But she had no idea that the crown would not rest on beauty or pride. A week later, the king sent out messages to the homes of the girls chosen for the queen selection process. Adaobi was one of them, along with 3 other girls. Chinwe, the daughter of a village teacher, Oluchi, the daughter of a palm wine tapper, and Amara, a quiet girl raised by her grandmother. Each girl received a sealed letter inviting them to spend 3 weeks in the royal palace. During that time, they will be given different tasks to test their patience, kindness, humility, and leadership. When Adaobi received her letter, she smiled proudly. "I told you, I was born for the throne," she boasted. "Who else in this village can stand beside me?" Her father warned her gently, "Adaobi, remember, pride comes before a fall. You must be humble and wise. This is not just about beauty, it is about the heart." But Adaobi only smiled and said, "Father, let me worry about that." When the girls arrived at the palace, they were not treated like princesses. They were given simple rooms, plain clothes, and duties to perform. The first task was to care for the palace kitchen and serve food to the elderly people in the village square. Oluchi carried baskets of yams without complaint. Chinwe shared water with joy. Amara washed plates and smiled kindly at the elders. But Adaobi grumbled the entire time. "Why should I be serving old people? I am Onowu's daughter, not a servant." As the days passed, Adaobi believed she was winning. She dressed better, spoke louder, and made sure the palace photographer captured her every move. But destiny was taking note, not of looks, but of character. A week later, the next test was announced. This time, the girls were to spend 2 days in the village market, not to shop, but to work. Each girl would be assigned to a different trader. Their task was to assist, learn, and show how well they could relate to common villagers. Amara was sent to help a vegetable seller. Chinwe worked at a bookstore. Oluchi joined the women who sold palm oil, and Adaobi was placed with Mama Nkechi, a fish seller known for her rough voice and smelly stall. When Adaobi arrived and saw the dirty bucket of fresh fish, she whispered angrily, "What is this nonsense? Do they expect a future queen to touch fish?" Mama Nkechi smiled. "My pikin, welcome. We get plenty work to do." But Adaobi refused to touch anything. She covered her nose, rolled her eyes, and stood by the corner the entire day. "This is a waste of my time," she complained. "They are just testing my patience, that's all." Later that day, when Mama Nkechi asked her to help carry a basin of fish to the next stop, Adaobi looked at her from head to toe. "I am not your house girl. You should be honored to even stand near me." People at the market turned to look. Gossip spread quickly all over the village. Meanwhile, other girls did their tasks without complaining. That night, the king met with his council. Reports were read aloud. The elders nodded at each girl's performance. But when Adaobi's name came up, they all turned and looked at each other. "She disrespected an elder at the market," one of them said. "She refused to help," another added. But the king remained silent. "I will decide after the final test," he said. Sometimes, even a proud child can be humble. The final week arrived, and the tension in the palace grew stronger. The girls had passed through different stages of testing: humility, service, and community behavior. Now the king himself was going to set the final test. On the morning of the announcement, the girls gathered in the palace courtyard. The king, sitting tall in his throne, looked at each of them thoughtfully before speaking. "For the final test," he said, "each of you will spend 1 full day and night with a different family in the village. You will live as they live, eat what they eat, and help them as one of their own. We want to see how you treat people when no one is watching." The girls were surprised, but cannot question the king. That afternoon, Adaobi was taken to the home of an old blind woman named Mama Ifeoma. Her house was small, with leaking roof corners and a dusty compound. Mama Ifeoma lived alone with only a goat and a chicken for company. She had no children, and the villagers always brought her food. When Adaobi arrived, she stood at the doorway, surprised and speechless. "Is this a joke?" she asked the guard who brought her. "There's no bed here, no fan, no bathroom. I can't stay in a place like this." But the guard simply bowed and left. Mama Ifeoma called softly from her mat. "My child, is that you? Please help me sit up. My back is aching." Adaobi sighed loudly, dropped her bag, and walked in slowly. She barely spoke to the woman. Later that night, she sat outside, grumbling. She refused the yam porridge offered to her, and instead ate the meat pie she had hidden in her bag. What Adaobi didn't know was that a royal servant was watching everything. Even the neighbors were instructed to report any strange behavior. Meanwhile, Amara was placed in a compound where the father had just lost his job. She helped sweep the compound, cook for the children, and gave her sleeping mat to the youngest child. Chinwe stayed with a sick woman and helped clean her wounds and fetch medicine from the herbalist. Oluchi spent the night with a crippled man and read to him from his Bible, keeping him company through the night. By morning, each girl returned to the palace quietly, except Adaobi, who came in hissing and fanning herself with a leaf. "That was the worst night of my life," she said loudly. "I hope this nonsense is over." The king was watching. So were the elders. The long-awaited day was finally here. The palace was filled with excitement as the villagers gathered in the courtyard to witness the final ceremony. Drummers beat their talking drums. Women danced in colorful wrappers. The day had come for the king to announce the next queen of Amoka. The four girls stood side by side in front of the king and the council of elders. Adaobi wore her finest wrapper. Her makeup was perfect, and she stood with her shoulders high, smiling confidently at the crowd. Amara stood beside her in simple white gown. Chinwe and Oluchi looked neat and calm, but Adaobi remained the center of attention, waving at people like she already wore the crown. The king raised his hand, and the whole gathering was quiet. "My people," he began, "we have watched, we have tested, we have listened. These young women were brought here not for their beauty, but for their hearts. We asked them to serve the weak, work with the poor, and live among the humble. Some of these girls surprised us with their kindness. Some showed great humility." He paused, then looked straight at Adaobi. But one among them failed all the tests. She mocked the poor. She refused to serve. She insulted elders. She covered herself in pride and saw others as beneath her. Adaobi's smile slowly faded. The king raised his voice. "The crown of Amoka cannot sit on the head of pride. It will sit on the head of humility." Then he turned to Amara. "Amara, daughter of Mama Nnenna, come forward." The crowd screamed in agreement. Amara stepped forward, her eyes wide open. She couldn't believe that a lowly girl like her would become the queen of the great land of Amoka. Adaobi stood frozen, her mouth open, but no words came out. "Congratulations," the king said to Amara. "You may not come from a rich home, but your heart is rich. You have earned the crown." As the crowd danced and celebrated, Adaobi turned and walked away quietly, her head bowed. The pride that once filled her heart had turned to heavy silence, and for the first time in her life, she felt what it meant to truly lose. Onowu Ezenwa, who didn't go to the palace that day with an excuse of not feeling strong, sat in his compound, surrounded by silence. The drums of celebration could still be heard from the palace, but his heart was heavy. His only daughter, Adaobi, had returned home, not with a crown on her head, but with shame on her shoulders. She walked past the servants without a word, went straight to her room, and shut the door. She didn't eat, speak, or even cry. But Onowu could feel her pain, and his own heart ached deeply. That evening, he walked slowly to her room and knocked gently. "Adaobi, it is me." There was no answer. He opened the door and found her sitting on the floor, in her royal wrapper, her face buried in her hands. "I failed, Papa," she whispered. I failed everyone. I thought I was better than them. Onowu sat beside her. You didn't fail because you lost the crown, he said softly. You failed because you forgot who you are. Not Onowu's daughter, but a child of the community. You forgot that the true crown is worn in the heart, not on the head. Adaobi raised her eyes to him. Why didn't you stop me when you saw I was becoming proud? I tried, he said, but you were surrounded by praise. Even I, your father, helped build your pride. I gave you everything, except the one thing that matters the most, discipline. There was a long silence between them. Then Adaobi spoke again. Is it too late to change? He smiled and held her hand. It is never too late, my daughter. You may not be the queen of the land, but you can still become a queen in the eyes of the people. Learn from this pen. Let it shape you. That night, Adaobi did not sleep much. She sat by her window, watching the stars and thinking about everything she had done wrong. And for the first time, she didn't blame anyone. Not the king, not the villagers, not even the other girls. She blamed only herself. And deep in her heart, something new began to grow. A desire to be better. Not to be admired, but to be useful. Weeks passed. The drums of the coronation had long gone silent, and Queen Amara had already started carrying out her duties. Adaobi stayed mostly in her father's compound, quiet and thoughtful. The shame of her past behavior was still fresh in people's hearts. Some whispered when they saw her, others avoided her. But she did not hide. Instead, she began to do something no one expected. She started helping. One morning, the village primary school announced that they had run out of chalk and exercise books. Adaobi heard about it and quietly sent 2 big bags of supplies without writing her name on them. When the headmistress found out who did it, she was shocked. Then Adaobi began to visit the village clinic with baskets of fruits and medicine, and even fetch water for patients. At first, people were suspicious. Is she trying to deceive us again? Some asked. But she did not stop. She visited Mama Nkechi, the fish seller she once insulted, and knelt before her. I am sorry, Mama, she said, her eyes filled with tears. I treated you like you were nothing. Please forgive me. Mama Nkechi, touched by her honesty, hugged her tightly and said, now you are becoming a true daughter of the land. The news of the new Adaobi began to spread all over Amuka village. One day, she visited Mama Ifoma, the blind woman she had once treated poorly during the final test. This time, she came with food and some wrappers. She sat on the mat and helped the old woman eat. You came back, Mama Ifoma said, her hands feeling Adaobi's face. But this time, you came with your heart. Yes, Mama, Adaobi responded. I want to be a better person, even if I will never wear a crown. And in the heart of Amuka, Adaobi's quiet transformation began to shine brighter than any royal beat. Months had passed since Adaobi lost her chance to become a queen. But something unexpected was happening in Amuka. Adaobi's change of heart had become impossible to ignore. She no longer dressed to impress or spoke proudly. She simply walked, helped, listened and learned. Even Queen Amara noticed her change. One evening, she invited Adaobi to the palace. Adaobi arrived quietly, unsure of what to expect. But Queen Amara welcomed her with a warm hug. I have been watching you, the queen said. What you are doing is beautiful. You may not wear the crown, Adaobi, but you are carrying the heart of a queen. Adaobi looked away, ashamed. I have made too many mistakes. I don't deserve such words. But that's what makes you even stronger, Queen Amara replied. You were proud and you fell, but you rose again. And now the people respect you, not because of your name, but because of your good deeds. That evening, the king's council met without Onowu and discussed Adaobi's efforts in the village. One of the elders said, She is now doing more than what many chiefs' daughters have ever done. The king nodded. Sometimes the best leaders are born from failure. She is not a queen by title, but she has become one in the hearts of the people. The next day, the village gathered for the New Yam festival. As the celebrations were going on, the king called Adaobi to the stage. Everyone was surprised as they waited patiently to hear what the king wanted to say. The king began, "I, King Uchechukwu of Amuka, present this special honor to Adaobi, daughter of Unowu Ezenwa," he announced. "For her service to the people, her humility, and her change of heart, we crown her the daughter of the land." The crowd shouted with joy. Adaobi's eyes were filled with tears, not from pride, but from joy. Not because she wore beads on her head, but because she now carried respect in her heart. And in that moment, she realized that sometimes the crown you earn through service is greater than the one you lost through pride. Years passed, and the story of Adaobi became one that parents told their children by moonlight. They did not tell it as a tale of shame, but as a lesson in growth. Once upon a time, they would say, a rich girl believed she was better than everyone. She lost the crown, but she found something greater, her true self. Adaobi, now a grown woman, continued to serve her people. She started a training center for young girls where they learned skills like sewing, farming, cooking, and most importantly, respect and kindness. She taught them that you are not better than anyone because of where you come from. What matters is what you give to the world. Even Queen Amara always invited her to speak to young maidens during palace events. She called her my sister in service. Her father, Unowu Ezenwa, lived long enough to see his daughter become a true light to the land. Most times, he watched the villagers with a peaceful smile, greeting her with honor and love. She may not be queen, but my daughter rules heart. When Adaobi got married and had children of her own, she raised them not to boast about her title as daughter of the land, but to learn how to greet elders, sweep the compound, and carry their own water. She taught them that true royalty is found in service. Long after she grew old and grey, and even after Queen Amara's reign ended, people still remember Adaobi not for the crown she lost, but for the life she lived. Her name became a symbol of second chances, a reminder that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. And in the heart of the people of Amoka, Adaobi was forever a queen.